Hello everybody, this is Craig Egan. I am going on the Pro-Vax World Tour. I'm going to be following the Vaxxed bus, and I'm going to be trying to spit knowledge, evidence, and common sense into the world as much as I possibly can. Thank you for your support. I want to say that this has been the most humbling and frightening experience of my life. Let me back up and start over. So, I've been a vaccine advocate for about 5 years now. On Facebook, I stumbled across the idea that some people wouldn't vaccinate their kids. At first, I thought that was one of those far-fetched ideas, like there aren't dinosaurs, or in that category. But I quickly found out that people actually believe this. People actually believe that vaccines cause a host of issues. Now, everybody thinks autism, but I've heard diabetes, I've heard epilepsy, I've heard Down syndrome, I've heard that vaccines turn the kid gay, I've heard that peanut allergies is a big one. Or the other day, I heard milk allergies caused by vaccines. Everything under the sun is in the anti-vax world possibly caused by probably one of the safer and most effective and life-changing medical discoveries in human history. So, that's a long story. We'll drink it over. We'll talk about it one day over a beer. Speaking of, if you'll excuse me, this has been a very long week. It's been very exciting. I'm a little bit stressed. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm more used to typing than I am to being on camera. So I am drinking a very fine ale here. It's called Monk's Indiscretion. It's from a very good friend of mine. So if you seem a little tipsy, I am, because it's been a hell of a week. So, Godspeed. Let me catch up with the Vaxxed bus. So, fast forward a couple of years, the Vaxxed bus is going around town. Now, Vaxxed is a documentary, if you will, of Andrew Wakefield's and his claim that autism and vaccines are somehow linked and there's some sort of causal effect there. So they put out this documentary. They're going around with this bus trying to promote this film to sell it. And basically what they're doing along the way is collecting stories from people who say that their kids are vaccine injured. Now, these stories aren't verified. I could walk up there. Now I can't now because they clearly know who I am. But you could walk up to this bus and up to their tent and you could say, I had a child 5 years ago. She had a vaccine in the hospital. 4 days later, she died mysteriously. I think the vaccine did it. Now, they would take your story, they would put it on the internet as evidence that vaccines kill people, and they would put your name on the bus. Now, you could have literally made up that child. You could have no children in your world, in your life, and they would believe your story. There's no verification. You could have a doctor, HIPAA violations aside, you could have a doctor walk up behind you and say, actually, I was there. This parent is distressed. I understand she wants an answer to why her child died, and it's tragic. But I was there, and it had nothing to do with vaccines. I can tell you this. And they'll believe the parent over the doctor and just blast this out into the world that that's the truth. So I feel that this is a very dangerous tactic. It's very manipulative. It preys on vulnerable parents. I think it's horrible. I think it's disgusting. So, being the pro-vaccine troublemaker that I am, I decided, hey, I'm going to take a look. I looked at their schedule, and sure enough, they were coming through my town, and they were going to be in Tacoma, where I live, Tacoma, Washington, about 6 blocks from my house, at a park that I can literally walk to, and I have, with my children. That's where the Vaxxed bus was going to be. This is 3 or 4 days ago. So I said, okay, I'm getting down there. It was the next day. Made myself a sign very clumsily. I'm more of a meme person than a sign person. And I went down to the park. And I held up my sign, said, vaccines save lives. And I stood about 100 feet away from them. Didn't try to engage them. Didn't try to get all up in their face. There was no harassment. I just stood there with my sign. And so finally, one of them came over and took a picture of me. I took a picture of them. They took a picture of me. And then one of them came over and had a discussion with me. And this discussion, she was a very nice woman. I guess she was from in town. She wasn't with the tour. She had come in to tell her story. And she said, she started to walk past me, read my sign, started to walk past me, and then turned around and said, what about parents like me? What about parents who have had vaccine-injured children? And she claimed that she had a vaccine-injured child and that even after that, her doctor couldn't give her a medical exemption for any more vaccines, which I found hard to believe, but it goes on. So she said that her child was vaccine-injured. Now, I'm not trying to argue with a normal parent about their own children. That's just not my place, but we did have a good discussion. And then we tried to be civil, tried to feel each other out. I don't remember exactly how it went, but it went all right. And then she revealed to me that she actually had 3 vaccine-injured children, all of different levels, all different conditions, as far as I understand it. And that's when I tried to just look at her and say, "Really? I mean, it's like," and I told her, I said, "That's like saying you won the lotto 3 times. Maybe there's a different explanation. Maybe it's not vaccines. Maybe it's just." I mean, you can't say that to a parent. It's hard. But you can't say, maybe it's just you. Maybe it's just your genetics. And she is convinced that she said, "See, it's a genetic and a vaccine thing." And why does it have to be a genetic and vaccine thing? Why can't it just be a genetic thing? Anyway, this is how the conversation went. She was very polite. She was very nice. She said to me, "Have you actually seen the movie? Have you actually watched Vaxxed?" And I hadn't. I got to admit, I've read Skeptical Raptor. I've read a lot of different science-based blogs, reviews of the movie, breakdowns, critiques, but I've never actually subjected myself to watching Vaxxed. I've never watched Loose Change either, but I can tell you 9/11 wasn't an inside job. You know, I don't have to watch a documentary on Bigfoot to tell you that you're full of shit, right? Anyway, so fair enough. If I'm going to go, I said, fair enough, that's fine. I've never watched it. Maybe I'll watch it soon, right? So I went home. I got on the internet, on Facebook. So hold on. Let me back up. I forgot the most important part. So before I actually talked to this woman, I show up with my sign, and I'm just kind of looking around, stood away from the tent. And I see a guy on the other side of the tent setting up a tripod and a camera. And so I'm checking him out. He looks over at me. He sees me in my sign. And he waves for me to come over. And I'm like, "Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" Right? He's like, "Yes, you come here." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I walk over to this guy. He says it was with Q13 Fox News. And he's going to be doing a coverage of the Vaxxed bus. But he would like to talk to me first, and he would specifically like to talk to me without alerting them that he was part of a news crew, that he was maybe just with me or something. He didn't want them coming in and interfering with our conversation before we got, and I appreciated that. So we had a good talk, my friend Nikki and I, and she was wearing a banana suit. It's a long story. She took it off. It was fine. Anyway, so we have this conversation about credibility and whether or not parents who think they have vaccine-injured children have a voice in this conversation about that. Who should be vaccinated, vaccine rights, vaccine laws, things of this nature. And the way I tried to answer it as delicately as I could, but basically what I said is a no. I mean, of course, everybody's got a right to their voice. Everybody's human. Everybody lives here. But if you're talking about scientific fact, no. Actually, as somebody who's an expert and somebody who is not an expert and has a very emotionally attached reason to believe something, they aren't on the same weight, and I don't mean to diminish their pain in the slightest. I understand there's a lot of parents out there who have children who have conditions who really need an answer. They absolutely, they need to know why they're, it wasn't something they did. They can tell themselves that. I fed my kid, this is what this lady told me, I fed my kid organic. She's an organic farmer. She says, I fed my kid organic, what else could it be? It's got to be vaccines. And why does it got to be anything? It's like their kid's damaged, they need a finger to blame. That's the way they see it. I think that's horrible to even say. It saddens me that these parents are going around thinking that their kids are damaged. Their kids are their kids. Their kids are who they are. Some kids have bigger challenges than others. Every kid has challenges. I've raised 3. And so these parents, anyway, I had the interview with the news guy. He put it on the news. That night I literally was at the park for like 10 minutes and I'm on the evening news. Had the news, went home, talked to the woman, or went and talked to the woman, went home. So I get online and I say to myself, man, that was crazy. I went down to see the Vaxxed bus and I got on the news right away and got, even though the article itself that got on the news very much fell into the false equivalency category, and I'll talk about that another time. At least I got my voice in. You know, it's better than nobody's voice in to stand up for parents and just rational people, not doctors, not anybody with a dog in the race. Just a rational dad who says, this is bullshit. This is not right. So, got on the news, went home, got online, said to myself, man, wouldn't it be hilarious if I followed them to the next stop and then followed them to the next stop like they were the Grateful Dead and I was a deadhead and I was just gonna, I mean, I'm sure the drugs are better with the dead, but it would be a fun experience to just follow them around, you know. I've got a Prius. You know, gas is cheap. Let's do this. Let's follow the Vaxxed bus around. So I made the joke online. Some people said, put on a GoFundMe. I'll chip in. I said, okay. So I said, all right. I made it modest. I said, here's what I'll do. Here's the stop I'll go to at $150. Here's the stop I'll go to at $300. Here's the stops I can make it to for like $1,500 because there's travel, there's expenses, there's hotels. And here's where I can get to at $3,000. Some astronomical shoot for the moon number, right? Well, that $3,000 was hit in one day. This thing got spread out. It got on Boing Boing. It got a lot of prominent skeptics started resharing it. My GoFundMe got like, at this point, it has about 3,000 shares. So then I expanded it out. We're going to go to at least Missouri, Kansas, Montana, Idaho, a bunch of different states, right? So I'm very excited about this. So then I said, well, I've got this thing going. I'm supposed to be going to these cities, but there's another one kind of in town, right up in Seattle, 30 miles away, in a suburb at a church, and it's a viewing of the Vaxxed movie that they're having. And so I think to myself, well, I told the lady in Tacoma at the park that I would take her advice and I would go see the movie. She said, have you even seen it? Why are you out here protesting? You've never seen the movie. Fair enough, lady. I'll go see it. It's playing the next night. 2 nights later. It's perfect, right? All right. So I head up there. I got a brand new, I upgraded my sign. It's 2-sided. One side looks like it's got measles. I'll get better. I'll figure this out. And so I get up there, I park my car, and the church is a little bit offset from the road. And so there's not really a good place to stand with my sign and kind of not be in anybody's faces, but still visible and still have people come up to me and talk to me without being in the church parking lot where I figure immediately I'll just get kicked out to the street. And so kind of weigh up my options. I leave the sign in the car and just zip up my hoodie and I just walk into the church and find a pew. And I sat down and I just kind of chilled in the back, probably the most conspicuous spot, super far left or right. And I looked up, and this lady comes and starts trying to strike up a conversation with me. Very nice woman. Her name's Bernadette, and she starts asking me questions like, "Oh, what brought you here?" And so I just say, "Oh, you know what? Someone suggested I should see it." You know, which is true. Someone suggested I should see it. And I kind of knew she was feeling me out. I had a suspicion she knew who I was at that point. I mean, she was, you know, obviously. I've got a GoFundMe going. They're going to respond to me, right? And so she says, okay. She says, do you have any vaccine-injured children in your family? I says, no, not that I'm aware of. And she asked me a couple other questions. And she says, oh, do you know about this study? I said, I don't know. And I was just kind of hesitant. And she says, you don't really want to talk to me, do you? I said, well, I'm just here to see the movie, right? And she says, you know I know who you are. And I smiled and laughed. And I was like, I figured you did. I figured you knew who I was. And she shook my hand. She was very, very cordial. And then she started like in on me on telling me that some long story, and the way she said it, it kind of slipped where I thought she was saying one thing, but she said it in a way where basically what she was trying to say was that her kids got her vaccines, and then 6 months, 8 months later, drinking milk went into anaphylactic shock, and found out in that process that they were deathly allergic to dairy, and has somehow traced that food allergy back to vaccines 6 months previous. The way I understand it, she's free to correct me. So I says, well, but the way she said it, it sounded like they went into anaphylactic shock from the vaccine because the vaccine had dairy products in it. And so I says, wait a minute, the vaccine, you confused me. The vaccine put the kid into shock? She says, no, the vaccine gave the kid the allergy because there's bovine serum inside of a vaccine, which, the blood of a cow is where the bovine serum is used in the process of growing a virus, because you can't grow measles on kale. You know what I mean? You either put it into a human and let it replicate, which kind of sucks for the human, or you take the measles virus or whatever virus and you grow it on some sort of animal compound that is compatible with that virus. So in the long list of ingredients that's about 10 miles long, at the very, very point 0.000528 end, there's all sorts of weird shit, right? Because it takes weird shit to make vaccines. And one of those is some sort of bovine serum, which she equated with milk and decided that the vaccine that had milk in it gave her kid dairy allergies because there were also aluminum salts, which somehow... Arguing with anti-vaxxers, it's crazy. So this is what happened. So I'm sitting there, she's trying to tell me this story, and I'm just kind of like, oh... you know what? I came to watch the movie. I'm not here to argue with you. And she was getting kind of heated. And then all of a sudden, there was another person chiming in. Yeah, that's what happened to my kid, right? And then all of a sudden, there were 4 people around me. and it was very clear that the entire staff knew exactly who I was, where I was sitting, and kind of cornered me for a minute. But I kept my cool. Like, oh, guys, and I think at one point I was like, man, I feel kind of ganged up on, and they stepped back. We were not trying to do that to you, sir, But I said, hey, I'm just here to watch the movie, and I explained to them I says I was in Tacoma the other night, and I had a picket sign. I wasn't aggressive. I stood my ground. I stood away from you, but I didn't hurt him. I just stood at the picket sign. A nice lady came up, told me to see the movie. Here I am, seeing the movie. What else do you want? You told me to come see the movie. They understood. So they left me alone. So, we watched the movie. Now, the movie comes on. It turns out that they're not playing the whole movie. They're playing like a 20-minute teaser version of the movie. But the movie's for sale in the lobby, for sure. As also with hats. There were T-shirts. There were novels. There were, I think they were selling lighters and gummy bears. I don't know. They had a flea market out front. But they were selling all sorts of cool swag. So, we watched the 20-minute movie, and I had no idea when I show up. I had no fucking idea. Out comes the Q&A guests, and the Q&A guests are Polly Tommy, who's like this Australian horrible, horrible person, kind of one of the pushing forces behind this movie, right? There's Suzanne Humphreys, which is a super, like, B plus level anti-vax quack nut, sells a lot of bullshit. Just bullshit. I'm just leaving it at that. And then the fucking man himself, Andrew Wakefield, is there on stage. And I'm like ill prepared for this encounter, but I'm figuring you know what? There's gonna be a lot of stops. I've been funded through like a good 5 or 6, 7 stops. So there will be time to ask Andrew Wakefield some questions. I'm just gonna sit down and listen to what other people ask him. And so people start asking their questions, they start telling their stories, and the one thing that you will find in anti-vax circles, in this group, on the internet, anywhere, at any scale, at any level, is any claim is good. Any claim is good. Somebody can get up there and say, my vaccines when I was 6 months old gave me an erection problem at 81, and people are like, oh yeah, vaccines, fuck them, right? That's what happened to my grandpa too, right? And so these people stand up and then they ask these weird questions, and Andrew Wakefield talks about how bad vaccines are and how they fuck up the gut flora, and medical marijuana is good, so is going gluten-free. I mean, it was a straight bingo card of bullshit. And it just went on, and it was kind of tedious, and I've heard all the things before, and so forgive me if I'm a little bit glossed over. But finally, about an hour in, it got towards the end, they said, okay, this is going to be the last question. So the last question comes up. I'm figuring, okay, I'm going to try to step outside and get some pictures of the bus. I'm going to try to get out before everyone gets out. Now's my exit. I don't want a confrontation this time. I want to chill. And so I get up to go, and my new friend Bernadette, right behind me. I tried to... It might have been my fault. I said goodbye to her. I said, good night, Bernadette. You know, have a namaste, if you will. And, oh, thank you for coming out, Craig. You know, I appreciate it. I want to open a dialogue. She wants to open a dialogue with me and find some common ground. We all just want the same thing, right? And so, and then her voice got a little louder. Andrew Wakefield's still talking on the stage. She said, let's go out into the lobby, right? So we move out into the next room, and then she's like, have you seen this study on aluminum adjuvant? And she starts in on it, right? I'm like, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I came to watch the movie. I appreciate your hospitality. I left my girlfriend and her kid at Chuck E. Cheese because I didn't feel safe bringing them with me. Because who knows, you know, I get threats online. And so I have to go. I have to go pick some people up. I've got to go. Thank you very much. It was nice meeting you. Oh, but did you read about this? But did you read about this study? What about that, Craig? And she really starts cornering me. And so she knows my kryptonite. I can't not argue, especially something caught my attention. Say, actually, that's not true, Bernadette. This CDC, blah, 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 whatever. How the conversation went. And my voice got a little bit louder, just slightly louder. And immediately another dude pulls up on me. One of the 4 that had been surrounding me before the movie. My friend Anu, A-N-U, Anu. And so Anu comes up. And, is everything okay? Is everything okay? And the way he's saying it is obvious, like, ma'am, is this man bothering you? Is this man harassing you? Right? And, well, I'm trying to leave, and she's trying to have a debate with me and talk about, look it up PubMed on your phone, look up PubMed on your phone, right? And so I'm like, man, I'm just trying to leave. And she, to her credit, is like, no, everything's fine. I'm talking to him, he's talking to me, everything's cool, you know. And so, and then Anu's like, so, have you looked at aluminum adjuvant? He starts in with the same lines of, have you looked up this study? Have you looked up this study, right? And we start into it, and I'm like, you know what, man, I want to, another time, I says, you know who I am. Clearly, you guys know who I am. You are, you've seen my GoFundMe, right? And they nodded yes. And so you know I'm going to be with you through Kansas. So we've got time to discuss this. I'm going to be standing there for like 8 hours sometimes. Right now, I got to go get my girlfriend, right? And so he says something, baits me one more time. I start into him again, and all of a sudden, there's like 5 people, and some dreadlocked blonde girls like with a kid in a carrier is like, you know that's true, you know that, and I'm like, oh man, God, and they ganged up on me. So it was fine. I said my adieu. Namaste. And they respected finally that I had to go. And that they would see me very soon. So that's where we're at. So tomorrow morning, I am going to Bellingham, Washington from Tacoma. I'm just going to drive up, hang out for a while, drive back. It's about 2.5 hours each way. So it's going to be a long day, but I might get a hotel. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where I'm at. But thank everybody for the contributions to the GoFundMe. We're going to try to extend some dates. We're going to try to do some upgrades to the current tour. I originally budgeted out as very shoestring how much I could personally get away with spending. Very little on the road by myself, but it's quickly come to my attention that I should probably have somebody else with me. Not only for support and possibly protection, but also just to hold the camera and document everything that's going on. So I'm going to readjust the budget to get a second passenger with me. I think is fair. And then I'm also going to readjust the budget to include some sort of equipment purchase, because really I'm just on my phone, and that's not going to be good for the tour that you guys are demanding and that you guys are paying for, and that I am honored and grateful for your support to have. So, Namaste. This is Cousin Craig Egan, coming at you. I'm going to try to live cast from Bellingham, Washington tomorrow. Hope you like my sign, and much love.